We're finally in the Hilux. It's been well over a decade since we've been asking for the Hilux to be offered to Indian consumers, but it is here, and it is here in its latest generation. This is the 8th generation Hilux built on the IMV platform. This would be the last, in fact, on the IMV platform before Toyota moves to the TNGA platform, which will give the entire range, which is the Innova, the Fortuner and the Hilux, better dynamics, more efficient powertrains and a lot more. But for now what we've got is the all-new Hilux. It's been priced on road, would roughly retail for about 40 to 45 lakhs depending on where you are. Fairly expensive. That was one of the biggest headlines that came out when the Hilux was introduced in India. But today I'm going to see just how worth it actually is. So let me quickly take you through the exteriors of the Hilux. Now this is a fairly large pickup truck in the Indian perspective. One thing about this is the way it looks, very imposing, the design, and of course a lot of the accessories that are put onto the body over here give it that much stronger, much nicer appeal. Some of these plastic elements, the plastic covers on the headlamp, the fender covers, the side step, the casings for the headlamps, the liners around the door handles, the roll bar at the rear, all of these are part of the accessories list. What comes standard, I'll just very quickly tell you what comes standard fitment on the Hilux is the flatbed liner, the Toyota sticker at the rear, and of course these soft opening suspension elements over here. These are the only standard fitments. Everything else on this is part of the accessories list. Now dimensionally, the Hilux is about 5.3 meters long, which isn't significantly longer than the Isuzu D-Max. That's just about 100 mm longer than the D-Max. The width and the height at about 1.85, 1.86 meters is almost exactly the same as the D-Max. Even the track is exactly the same. In fact, the D-Max has got a longer wheelbase than the Hilux. So that's about the only differences between these two pickup trucks. So in size, they're almost the same, identical. They even sit on 18-inch wheels and tires. Now the tires, the Hilux sits on these Bridgestone Dwellers. These are 265/60 profile tire, 18-inch sitting on 18-inch alloy wheels, and these are HT pattern tires. That's what comes standard from Toyota. Not manual, not mud terrain or all-road terrain ATs. These are HTs, which means you get good efficiency when you're driving them on the road, and they're reasonably good in off-road conditions as well. Quite imposing, quite handsome, quite eye-catching for that matter, but a lot of it has to do with what you spec from that massive accessories list. The flatbed, Toyota says, has got a payload of about 500 kilos, but I think it would be a little more than that, which also means that you could fit in two of your motorcycles, two large capacity motorcycles inside this. ADVs for that matter would comfortably go in. You'd find the space and you could fit them in. I'm going to quickly hop in and see. And this is a bit of an advantage, is that they've got fastening points fitted in here and they're at a lower level. Now these can be modified again, you can place them higher if you want, but these ideally work for in a much nicer way because they're at lower height than what I have seen in the D-Max, and it makes it easier to fasten things when they're lower. All in all, given the length and the width of the flatbed, I think you can comfortably accommodate two large capacity ADV motorcycles in here and head out on your adventures. These are what the interiors of the Hilux look like. It's got an all black interior except for this one silver panel running across the dashboard. But these dark interiors, the black leather upholstery on the seats, the black upholstery, the panels on the door pads, the dashboard, it makes the cabin feel a little claustrophobic. Nonetheless, it's a fairly large cabin, so there is that sense of space. Keep in mind, you don't get a sunroof in the Hilux, so that added sense of space that a sunroof would have provided, well, that isn't there either. But I'm not complaining, to be honest. Overall, I do like the look and feel of the cabin. The buttons are tactile, they're exactly where you need to be. The Hilux has got a large touchscreen, but what's missing on this, of course, is that you don't get any 4x4 information. That is a bit of a miss. You can see the wheel direction on the center screen right here on the instrument binnacle, and you've got plenty of controls right here on the steering wheel, but these are largely to control the connected features and of course the audio and various other features, comfort and convenience features. You've got an on-the-fly four-wheel drive selector, which goes from two-wheel drive that powers the rear wheels, that sends all the torque to the rear wheels alone, to H4 and L4, and between H2 and H4 you can select them on the fly. But if you want to go down into low four-wheel drive, then of course you have to stop the car, get into neutral, switch it into low four-wheel drive. If you want to activate the downhill assistance control, again stop, get into neutral, activate the DAC, or if you want to lock the differentials as well, and ideally well, stop the car again, neutral, engage the lock, the differential lock.
What the Hilux makes up for in reliability, it loses in quality. So while it will last till Armageddon, it does not feel complimentary of the high price tag. Interior plastics feel cheap. Fit and finish is questionable. On our test cars, we even had the bed liners popping out in several of the test cars, and the tech, especially on the infotainment screen, feels 20th century.
Now let me quickly take you through what the rear seat space is, because that is the biggest challenge in most pickups. This is a double cab, which means it's got 4 doors and you've got space to seat passengers in the rear seat. I'm quickly going to hop into that and show you what the space is like at the back as well. So here we are in the rear seat. Ingress into this cabin, well, this is a fairly high lift vehicle. You've got a fair amount of ground clearance, almost 280-300 mm of ground clearance. So stepping into the cabin, well, for shorter people can be a bit of a challenge, but nonetheless there's a footrest which you can step on and then get into the cabin. And as you can see, that was my driver seated seating position, and there's plenty of space here, lots of knee room, lots of headroom and lots of width. You can comfortably seat 3 people in this back seat. Now the only challenge is that over long distances, because this is a pickup styled vehicle, the seat, the backrest effectively is more upright, and that can make long journeys a little uncomfortable. You cannot adjust this backrest, it just won't move. There's absolutely no space. As you can see, you've got the windscreen, the rear windscreen right there. Over long distances, this could be a bit uncomfortable, but well, for short distances, not a problem whatsoever. Another convenience feature, you've got grab rails all over this cabin. There are 4 here for the rear passengers, 1 at the top and 1, as you can see, on the B pillar. And there are 4 grab rails at the front, again 2 on the top of the roof and 2 on the A pillars. So getting into this car is not an issue. Now the Hilux is one of the last few of the body on frame chassis pickups, or rather off-road recreational vehicles, and that is principally down to it being needed to work and operate in areas where infrastructure is still very weak, which means you've got bad roads, off-road trails and various other obstacles, for which a ladder frame chassis works pretty well. Now there are a few inherent drawbacks to the ladder frame chassis, and a lot of it has to do with dynamics. But then again, this isn't a vehicle that you're going to go hugging corners with, driving fast and expecting to see a lot of fantastic dynamics. No, this isn't built for that. This was built to explore the outdoors, to get out there with your family, with your friends, explore the wild. So if you're that kind of person who likes traveling, who loves road trips, it makes a lot of sense. I own a pickup, and I've found over the years that it's been a lot of fun. I could put my bike into the load bed, take it out, ride my motorcycle, load it back into the flatbed, and then come back home. The difference with the Hilux is that what you're getting here is a far more refined product, a far more sophisticated product. The architecture also boasts of a much more powerful drivetrain. You've got a 2.8 litre turbo diesel engine, and that makes about 500 newton meters of max torque. The advantage here is that torque comes in as low as 1400 rpm all the way up to 2800 rpm. So not only is it a massively large torque band, it's an enormous amount of torque that you get at a very low engine speed. Having said that, my one concern with this is that, like all BS6 large capacity diesels, you've got a DPF in it as well, a diesel particulate filter. And the challenge with diesel particulate filters, as I've experienced over years, is that at higher altitudes, when you're running richer mixtures, the filter tends to get clogged up pretty easily, very quickly. What I do like about this engine is that the peak torque, the 500 newton meters of torque, comes in very early. In the manual transmission, it comes in at about 1400 rpm. The automatic that I'm driving comes in at about 1600 rpm. At 1600 rpm, you're in peak torque. And that means you've got an effortless engine, you've got an effortless drive. You're on the boil at all times. You just don't sense a loss of momentum at any given point in time. Step on the pedal and, well, you've got power and more power coming through this drivetrain. We've already entered a trail. It's a broken patch, broken tarmac, small bits of tarmac here and there are visible, but largely it's all turned to dirt. And this is where you get a sense of what the ride quality is like. And I must say, I'm quite impressed with the way this is working. The independent front suspension, and despite having a leaf spring setup at the rear, ride quality is quite sorted out. Of course, keep in mind, with a pickup and an empty flat bed, it definitely feels a lot more bouncier, but even then, this is surprisingly well controlled.
The Hilux offers a rear diff locker and electronic traction control to make any off-road work easy. However, when the rear diff is engaged, it switches off the ETC on the front axle, essentially making this a 3-wheel drive instead of 4. So if the front wheel starts spinning, then the rear axle is all you have to get yourself out of a sticky situation. For most off-road conditions though, the ETC, which Toyota has developed over several years of the Hilux's existence, is more than enough for all the hard work.
So while doing the moguls or the articulation track, this is where we can clearly see what the underbody is like. And you notice that at the rear, you've got a leaf spring setup, and this is vital because the Hilux is essentially a load-carrying pickup truck, which means it needs a much stronger suspension setup at the rear. Most pickups have got a leaf spring system at the rear as well, and that's also because a lot of the weight comes onto the load bay. This also makes the pickup a little bouncier, but don't bother too much about that. That's an inherent characteristic in most of these SUVs, even the pickup trucks, with the rear leaf spring setup. At the front, you've got better articulation. I'm just going to move this up ahead, and you're going to see just how well. Well, we couldn't get it up in the air, but nonetheless, as you've seen, it lands pretty softly. Here's one tip though: if you're going to modify your Hilux and you're going to put a lot of stuff on it, you will need to change your suspension considerably, both at the front and the rear. You'll need much stronger dampers simply to take on the additional weight that would come on from probably a winch, a roof carrier, the roll bar at the rear, and various other things that you would probably put on as accessories on this SUV.
We're finally on a dry river bed. We finished all the off-road tasks that were laid out before the Hilux, and the Hilux is everything it has promised to be. It is fun, it's exciting, it's dynamic, it's highly capable in this terrain, and then there's the versatility as well. It's an immensely diverse car with so much of functionality, so much of capability that makes it very hard to refuse its proposition. I do hope someday Toyota does get into the position to manufacture the Hilux in India. because that would make this pickup, this lifestyle pickup, very affordable, and I'll be standing in the queue of buyers.